We have a missionary to do the prayer first.
I'll do the pledge.
Perfect. The prayer first.
Yep.
Our dear and gracious Heavenly Father.
Oh, I'm sorry. Put on your chair.
Our dear and grateful Heavenly Father, we come today as a public gathering on behalf of our school district, our community, and our families. We thank you for this opportunity to express ourselves and to learn what is best for the future. We pray that God's blessings be with us, that we have happy and joyous time, and we'll all learn better from it. And ask this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Okay. Now, today is National Medal of Honor Day. And in Utah, we only have 5 Medal of Honor recipients. One of them is not only from the Alpine School District, he's from this district, District 5. He's from Pleasant Grove, Utah. And his name's Jose Valdez. And so, follow me in the pledge, please. Pick a flag any flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah, I'll do the tag
Okay.
after.
It would have been a lot better if I had noticed.
You do the tag for the first 2 questions, since he has my cell phone. Oh, yeah, sure. Okay, now Skylar will decide if it's a 30-second question, a 1-minute question, or a 2-minute question. And if it's a 2-minute, when there's 1 minute left, I'll go like this. And then when it's down to your last 20 seconds, then last 10 seconds, and then stop.
And Craig, is the order going to rotate on answering?
And what is Alicia, John, Mark? Okay, great. Well, let's start with the opening statement. 90 seconds. Is that good? Good with that? Okay, so let's start with Alicia. 90-second opening statement.
I might go slightly longer than that, but I will try to keep it close. So my name is Alicia Alba, and I grew up here in Utah County. I graduated from Brigham Young University and have a degree in education. My family moved to St. Louis, and I taught school there as well as here in Utah. And we came back about 14 years ago. I have 5 kids who are in the public schools here, 2 at Rocky Mountain Elementary, 1 at Oak Canyon Junior High, and then 2 at Pleasant Grove High School. I have been a very active volunteer and a very active advocate within our schools. I've held leadership positions in PTA and in our school community councils. I've spent thousands of hours, even just within this last year alone, volunteering to make sure we have opportunities in our school for our kids. And I really appreciate a lot of the great things the Alpine School District does. And I do think that there's some room for improvement, though, and I would like to be part of that change. So I am standing here to make a difference. I am data-driven. I advocate for transparency, communication, collaboration. I thrive on bringing people to the table and being able to find common ground, being able to make decisions. Local representation is something else that is very, very important to me and something that I'll advocate for. So that's a little bit about me.
Okay, my name is John Gadd. I live here in Pleasant Grove. My wife and I bought our home in 2000, so we've lived there for 24 years. We have 6 kids. I grew up in the school district just north of us, so I attended public school K through 12 in Jordan School District. and had a great experience, had a lot of good teachers, had a lot of great teachers who really cared about my success. After a LDS mission to Honduras, I attended BYU and got a degree in computer science. And I actually took a class from our current representative, Mark Clement, which I really enjoyed. After a few years of being a computer programmer, I decided to go back to law school, and I attended a law school in Michigan called Ave Maria School of Law, and it's a very conservative, politically conservative law school. And it was there that I kind of developed my fiscal conservatism and social conservatism and my original understanding of the Constitution, and where I decided that really conservatism is superior to the other ideologies that are out there, liberalism, progressivism, etc. Came back to Utah and spent the next several years working in a couple of great patent law firms where I worked with inventors doing technology law and helping them to protect their inventions with patents. So that's my background. Also been involved in Boy Scouts and the local Republican Party.
Hi, I'm Mark Clement. Again, I've been on the school board for about 10 years. I have 9 kids that all went to school here, and we've lived in Linden for about 30 years. So it's a community I love, and I'm excited to also represent American Fork, where my wife went to high school. So we have a lot of roots in this area. Again, I think maybe I'm just going to jump right in with some of the things that board members can do and how I feel about those. So the first thing that board members do is they hire the superintendent and business manager. And I think we've hired the best superintendent ever. Shane Farnsworth is amazing. He is a proponent of local control and wants teachers in classrooms and teacher teams to decide on their goals and how to measure them. Another thing that a board member does is pass the budget. And that's something that I take seriously. We also build schools and set boundaries. And we also create district vision and policies. And, my real vision is to have students achieve high, and to have them be emotionally sound and supportive.
One second left. Good job.
Okay, I was here last week and the questions were much spicier, so you're getting off easy so far. The first question is, what is something you think the school board is doing right, and what is something you would change? And we'll start with John.
How many you call on?
90 seconds.
Ooh. First question's harder. Something the school board is doing right. I think they've hired a lot of good teachers. Something I think that they should change is they raise our taxes way too much. So over the last 6 years, which is the only, which is all we have of public minutes on the school board website, the school board's voted to raise our taxes 10 times in 6 years. And that's a combination of tax rate increases and bonds, which is basically taking out debt in our name. 16 months ago, the voters voted no on a $595 million bond by like 5.5%. 7,000 voters more voted no than voted yes. And since that time, in the last 16 months, the board has raised our taxes twice anyway. And then just this last week, they tried to raise our taxes another $175 million, but they canceled that at the last minute. So something the board needs to do different is stop raising our taxes so much. So our current representative on the board, Mr. Clement, I went back and checked the minutes. Of the 10 times that the board voted to raise our taxes, he voted yes all 10 times. And 5 of the times he was the one who made the motion to raise our taxes. So if I'm elected to be on the Alpine School Board, the base budget is $1 billion, and we can do a great job educating all the students in the district with that $1 billion. And so I would never vote to raise our taxes. I would instead do a great job educating students with the base budget of over $1 billion.
Okay, so
And you can have an extra 30 seconds since you were mentioned.
since I was mentioned. Okay, so well, we might as well talk about what I think most people in the state know, and that is that Alpine School District is the best district in the state. In every way, our students outperform everyone else in the state. If you go to any teaching school, BYU, UVU, and ask the education majors where they want to get a job, they all want to come to Alpine District. And that's because we have the ability to provide the support and the environment that really helps them to build students that are successful. And that's what teachers really care about. They really care about having students that succeed. And so I guess I better spend 30 seconds and at least respond to this issue of funding. It turns out that we spend 70% of our budget on teacher salaries. So if you want to cut the budget and not raise taxes, you've got to cut teacher salaries or cut teacher positions. The other 30% is for required things that we do. We have to bus students. We're required by law. We have to provide buildings for students. You can't just say we're not going to provide buildings because there are students coming that need a place to go to school. So I think that one thing that I would like to change is that I would like us to move from doing bonds to saving up and paying cash for schools. Turns out when you bond for a school, about 40% is spent on interest. So if we can save up and then buy schools with cash, we can save 40% for the cash for the taxpayer, and I think that could make a huge difference.
So Alpine School District, one of the very best things they do is really their teachers. There are so many amazing educators here in our district who really care about the students, who are well trained and who really, really do what they need to do, which is help lead us to amazing student outcomes where our kids are able to reach their fullest potential. An area where Alpine School District could improve is on accountability. There have been a lot of issues over the last year that have been raised where Alpine School District has been either doing things that are illegal or unethical or just very questionable, and I've been involved firsthand in trying to help redirect that, and not only for the instance that it happened, but then additionally trying to change it at a state level so that problem can't occur again. One of the most immediate examples that I could think of is the school closures that happened this last year. When Alpine School Board voted to close the schools, and then they notified parents the next day and started the feedback process while they were implementing those changes that they'd already voted on. State statute states that we need to first notify parents, then do feedback, then vote on whether the schools will be closed before implementing them. And I was able to stand with a group of parents. 33 of us were able to meet with legislators and crafting the law so that can happen again. And we were able to keep the schools for those parents open. And that meant a lot to me. We were also able to get Utah State Board of Education to add oversight so if parents have a problem in the future, that they can contact them and that they will provide oversight to make sure school districts follow the law.
We have a lot on budget and taxes, so we're going to stick there with, group them together. So what's your philosophy and how does the voice of the people play into funding building projects, whether that be a property tax increase, the use of lease revenue bonds, GO, general obligation bonds? How do you consider the people's voice when deciding how to build a school? We'll start with Mark.
How much time?
Not 60 seconds.
Okay, so this is actually something that has been a difficult topic in Alpine District because we have had this situation where the West is growing rapidly and where the East is declining in enrollment in many areas. American Fork, not so much, PG quite a bit, Linden quite a bit, and Orem quite a bit. And so as you take a look at demographics, a lot of this is happening, probably you guys have noticed, people are having fewer kids. That's part of it. We have an aging population. And so the reality is that we need to fund new schools in the West, and we need to fund, consolidate schools in the East just in order to make things work. In terms of funding, during my time as a board member, our tax rate went from 0.0071 to 0.0057. The tax rate has actually decreased 14 increments. Increments about $5.7 million.
Yes.
Yeah, repeating the question. What is your, personal philosophy when it comes to the voice of the people in funding school projects, whether it be a property tax increase, lease revenue bond, or general obligation bonds?
Sorry. So I absolutely think that where our schools are located, and they are a huge part of our community. People move to areas because of where those schools are and the programs that they have there. So absolutely, I think that people who are on the ground should have a very strong voice in what happens to those schools. Now, that said, there are times when schools do need to close and when schools need to be built. Out west, there's huge overcrowding. I know our current board has really struggled with being able to fund new schools out the west side. However, I really don't think that ends justify the means. I'm very grateful that with the lease revenue bond that they considered passing that would have brought them to over $300 million of lease revenue bonds that voters do not get to vote on. I'm glad that they backed off on that one because it is not okay for the voters to say no and for them to say, well, yes, anyways. And so I'm 100% a supporter of making sure that we are being fiscally smart, that we are not being extravagant in how we are building. And that's it. Thank you.
So this is one of my biggest issues, building school buildings. So the district builds a lot of buildings and they renovate a lot of buildings. And one of my biggest issues with how they do that is that the buildings are extravagant and way too expensive. Schools should absolutely be safe and functional and comfortable, but they don't need to be crystal palaces. We don't need a 5-story glass entryway and a glass atrium in every school. That doesn't help. School buildings don't educate students. Great teachers educate students. Yes. I would take the millions and millions and millions that we spend on these extravagant school buildings, and I would build safe, functional, standard school buildings, and I would take that money and push it towards teachers and teaching resources, because teachers teach students, not school buildings. Yes. The other thing I'd just like to bring up is we don't have to cut teachers or teacher pay to do what I'm talking about. We have $1 billion base budget. If we cut extravagant school buildings, there's plenty of money to keep paying teachers what we're paying them and to push more resources towards teachers. So that's just not true that we would have to cut teachers or cut teacher pay in order to stop raising taxes.
Okay, sticking with the budget, it's a 2-part question. I'm going to answer the first one so you can answer the second one. How much of the ASD budget is dependent on federal funding? And it's about 9 to 10%. So I'll answer that one. But with that being said, is it worth it? Is it worth receiving 10% of the budget from federal funds? We have to follow current policies of the Department of Education. Strings attached. So is that federal funds worth it, Alicia?
Thank you. That's a great question. So that 10% primarily is used in Title I schools and also for the food services that we receive. And obviously feeding our children is an important thing. There are not as many strings attached with that one. However, I do think that we do need to be very careful that we're not beholden to somebody. I believe in local control. I believe in state sovereignty. And so we need to make sure that the money that we're taking doesn't make us so that we are beholden to the federal government. There are some important things that we do get from the federal government, just protections for children against discrimination. whether they're special needs, et cetera. So that's important for us to uphold. But overall, we do need to just be really, really careful. It is a very small portion of the budget that comes from that. Like I said, most of it is for food services and for Title I schools in areas where kids need some extra support, and they're able to hire additional teachers, et cetera, with that funding.
I have a question for you. If there's an important question is added to that, can we raise our hand and answer it?
I mean, probably not. You write it on a card and then submit it. We need a couple more too, if you have any more cards.
And can you repeat the question?
Yes, yeah, it's federal funding worth the strings attached.
Okay, so if you look at the last year's budget that the school district published, it's actually about 6%. 6% of their money comes from the federal government. 59% comes from state income taxes. 30% comes from property taxes, and the other little bit of percent comes from trust lands and some other donations and different things. So we're talking about 6%. The question is, does it make sense to have strings attached for 6% of our budget? Depends on the strings, but probably the answer is no. Like Alicia mentioned, a lot of that money is actually school lunch money, and then there's a lot of programs that help kids with special needs and stuff. So we definitely need to take care of those things. But the question is, could we get that done without the federal money? And maybe we could. If those strings attached come with woke activism programs, we absolutely shouldn't take the money. For however much. Unfortunately, Alpine School District has a problem with that. They have a whole DEI department that's dedicated to this idea of DEI and which is based on critical race theory. It's a whole big problem.
So I would just encourage you to take a look at the budget documents. You can go to alpineschool.org and you can go to Departments, Business Services, and it has both the enrollment projections and the budget documents. There's actually, this is something I've worked on while I was a school board member, is trying to make it easier for people to understand. So when I first came on the board, there were mostly spreadsheets on there, and I worked to try to let's create some graphics that help us understand which parts of the budget are being used for what purposes so that an average person can understand it. So I would encourage you to take a look at that because there's a lot of good information there now. One thing you'll notice is debt service, which is what we pay to pay off bonds, is 0.1% of the budget. So yeah, if we think we're going to build schools that are not as palatial and that will somehow solve our budget problem, that will cut 0.1% of the budget.
Okay, moving on from finances for a little bit. Do you support putting a district split on the ballot this year? And if so, which option of the 6 do you favor? I think we're at John.
The answer is no, I don't favor putting it on the ballot, and here's why. The school district has sold us this idea that they've hired this company to do an independent, unbiased, third-party audit, and that's just not true. I did a grammar request to see the communication between Alpine School District and the MGT company. There's 635 emails they sent me back, and in those emails, you see a constant stream of instructions from the school district telling MGT exactly what to do, what questions to ask, how to modify their questions, who to talk to, who not to talk to, what data to put in the report. They sent them the scenarios for the split before they ever had a chance to come up with their own scenarios. So this report is rigged from start to finish. So we do not have an unbiased report that we can go off of to make a decision right now. And are they going to put it on the ballot? I think so. Next month they'll put it on the ballot, but we absolutely shouldn't take their word for it. That report is rigged from start to finish.
So this is actually an exciting topic with lots of discussion. We have yet to hear MGT's report. That'll come at the end of the month. I don't know what's going to be in it. I know that they are a professional company that has done this exact thing in many districts throughout the country. They were selected as the best for providing this kind of an evaluation. And I am just going to disagree that in every situation, we gave them full access to all of our information and wanted them to provide an unbiased account. And so I would dispute this conclusion that we're hearing that it's a biased account. And I have no idea what they're going to suggest, and I'm excited to hear what it is.
So my concerns are very similar to John's, actually. Our district spent $200,000, I believe, on the feasibility study on whether or not to split with MGT. And MGT came out here, and so far for our $200,000, we received about 24 slides that share very shallow, superficial information, and it's not even clear exactly on what information those do or do not include. And when they gave the presentation, it was given in a way, at one meeting that I went to for the PTAs and school community councils, it was said, so option 1 is staying together. If you love children, you'll go with option 1. Here's option 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Here's a survey. Would you like option which one? Well, of course, if you frame it that way, then you're not going to be able to get a very good response. I personally think we need much more rigorous data. I'm hoping that we get it. I still haven't seen anything. There were so many things that weren't included, including capital needs and other things in the reports. And if we were going to go with a reconfiguration, I know that's part of the question, I personally think option 4 would be in our best interest, had the most balance between enrollment, revenue, and costs. So, thanks.
And what is option 4? I mean, I don't remember.
Can I clarify? So option 4 is where Pleasant Grove goes with Orem, Linden, and Vineyard. Lehigh goes with all of the northeast cities, and then Saratoga, Eagle Mountain, Cedar Fort, etc. are over there. So that's
So just really quick, 30 seconds. Here's an email from the school district business administrator, the guy that makes $350,000 that the school board just hired, right? Here's an email from him 1 week before that. We did have you guys all remember, we had 3 big meetings where they presented their report to us, right? And here's an email where he says, please review and incorporate in your presentation for next week. That presentation for next week was the presentation that we all went to. Here's a spreadsheet that has the 6 splits and those horrible deficit numbers that look so bad in red up on that report. It's got all those on it, and it's got a whole bunch of other data. And he said, please put this in your presentation for next week that all of the public is going to listen to. So it's just not true that they didn't tell the MGT what to put in their report. They absolutely did. And I have a whole bunch. I mean, there's 635 emails going back and forth.
You want to reply?
I would just say any district would be foolish if they did not provide an advisory group all of the information that they ask for. So I don't see why providing a group with the information they ask for should be seen as some nefarious plot.
Okay, sticking with Mark, next question. Do you support Representative Ivory's sensitive materials legislation and the bright line rule against sexually explicit materials in school?
So I can tell you what I do support and what bothers me. So we had this bill passed last year, and all of the districts in the state came out with policies that allowed parents to challenge any book in the libraries. And I would say was very effective at providing local control that allows us to provide community standards and keep pornography out of our schools. What I don't like was we passed another law a year later before we'd even seen how it worked out. And now this law allows 2 districts and a couple of charter schools to now ban a book throughout the state. Charter schools don't have elected boards, and I believe that is taking away the voice of the people from setting community standards.
So first off, I really don't think it should be controversial for us to say that we don't think that pornography belongs in our schools. The bright red line, I think that it's important for us to have that, and so that we make sure that the schools in our libraries that our kids have free access to are age appropriate. And that means, absolutely no pornography in the schools. There is a process in place so that the schools can go through and find different things if a parent brings a concern, if a student brings a concern, so that they can get it out of the schools. I've personally been involved in that process within my students' own schools with a book that my 5th grader brought home that was completely inappropriate, being able to get that out of the classroom. As far as the new law goes, I think that it can help streamline the process to have a few different districts. If a book is bad enough that it gets banned in multiple districts, that can be something that I think could be helpful to the other districts. I'm curious to see how it goes into effect, especially with the charter schools and their involvement in it.
So the guiding principle is that we've accepted for hundreds of years is that obscenity and pornography should not be in schools. And it's a sad situation that we have to deal with this. So my understanding of the update to the law is once you have multiple schools find that a book is obscene or pornographic, then we don't have to do it on a district-by-district basis across the entire state. Once we have the threshold number, then we can just go ahead and say, well, a threshold number of schools have found that this book is obscene or pornographic. Let's go ahead and take it out of schools. Now, again, we're not talking about banning books or burning books. These books are still available. You can still buy one on Amazon or go down to your city library and get the book. We're talking about what's available to kindergartners and 5th graders and 7th graders. And should they be able to walk into the school library and walk out with obscenity and pornography? And they absolutely shouldn't. And so, yeah, I support this law that allows pornographic and obscene books to be taken out of school libraries, and so that little kids aren't checking those out, taking them home.
Okay, we're gonna stay with the spicy ones. Do you support the Office of DEI, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion? Two-part. Do you support an office for that, and do you support it being taught in the classroom? Are we with Alicia?
Are we? Thought we were.
Yeah, we finished with John. No, yeah, Alicia.
Okay. So this is actually something I've been involved with firsthand. When everything started happening about 5 years ago with the anti-racism ideology like Ibram X. Kendi, Robin DiAngelo, it was something that I saw creeping in actually specifically in Alpine School District. And it was something I was able to address and kind of get out of our schools. So do I support an Office of DEI? No, I don't. Not if it is based on a divisive ideology like that. I have actually volunteered. I was a leader of an organization here in Utah that advanced civil liberties, specifically not in that woke, anti-racist DEI sort of model. We absolutely should not have racism in our schools. We absolutely do need to make sure that we are inclusive and that we are embracing diversity and that we're supporting all of our students. However, we need to make sure we're doing that in a way that follows the model of Martin Luther King, that advances liberties for all of us. So that would be my take.
So the answer is no, I don't support DEI. So it stands for diversity, equity, and inclusion. And those words all sound great until you look into them and see what they mean. And what they mean is, it's based on critical race theory, and it's based on this idea that notwithstanding all the progress our society's made over the last 100 years, 150 years, that we're still fundamentally racist. And that if you're born a white, traditional male, that you're an oppressor. And if you're anybody else, you're an oppressed victim. And the idea, and this has crept into, there's a whole office of this in Alpine School Districts. It's the first thing that I would vote to completely eliminate is this DEI office, because it has no place in a school district to tell kids that because they're a white traditional male, you're an oppressor, and everybody else you're victims, and we need to sideline and push down the white traditional male students and lift up everyone else. That's just horribly wrong and racist. This DEI is based on the concept that the only way to remedy past discrimination is present discrimination. And that's just wrong. It's still racism, and it has no place in our schools.
So I am excited to hear people being concerned about this woke thing. But let me tell you what our Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion does in Alpine District. They manage special education for students who may be autistic or who have other special needs. They're trying to provide an equitable education for those students. Let me tell you what else they're doing. We actually have a large Hispanic population in Alpine District. They are providing a way for those students to come out of poverty and to make our communities safer and stronger. That's what they're doing. These things that you hear from other states or possibly YouTube videos about somebody saying we're going to push down white students to make others look better is total fiction. It does not occur in this state and definitely not in this district. So I just would like you to know, I have 10 seconds, 20 seconds, or I'm done. 5 seconds? I'm going to tell you one story, okay? If any of you have gone to Dan Peterson Elementary, it's in American Fork. It's a school for profoundly disabled students. I went there the other day and met with a student who could not speak or communicate in any way his needs. His teacher's IEP, the plan for the year, was to allow him to say when he's thirsty or when he's hungry or when he needs to go to the bathroom. Can you imagine what a change that would make to a child to be able to communicate his needs? That's what our diversity, equity, and inclusion department does now.
So I do want to just give a shout out to Alicia Ruiz. She is the head for the Equity and Inclusion Office at Alpine School District. I don't agree with everything that she does. However, there is some good that happens in that office. However, I wanted to just give a rebuttal to what Mark said about how it doesn't happen here in our state and it doesn't happen in our district. It absolutely does. There was a scholarship that was offered for specific race children, and it excluded white children. And I was able to work with the Alpine Foundation to change that so that it now includes everybody from all the different races, and it's not limited to just a few races. So that is a thing that happens, for sure.
And I would just say what you just heard from Mark is a straw man argument. No one's arguing that children with disabilities shouldn't get the help that they need. No one. We're talking about racism. And racism that happens because of DEI. I'm holding in front of you a document from Alpine School District where they categorize the students based on their race: Hispanic, Pacific Islander, Asian, African American, Indian, and they have counts for each student. They have no business keeping track of the race of all the students. The only race that the Alpine School District should care about is the human race. And they should treat all of the students equally without respect, without regard to, their perception of what the student's race is.
The final word. Do you want to use it?
That's okay.
Okay. Last one in the social category. Do you support political or social displays, flags, things of that nature, or would you require or allow only the United States flag, John?
I haven't thought too much about this, so I'll just speak off the cuff. I would be fine. I think you have to have a certain order and decorum in classrooms, and I would be fine with a rule that says we only have the United States flag and the state flag. Once you open it up to other flags, it seems like in fairness you should let everybody have their flag. And there's all kinds of ideological flags out there that absolutely have no place in the classroom. A classroom should be a place for teachers to educate students, not for activists to indoctrinate students. And so there's all kinds of indoctrination that's associated with all kinds of flags that shouldn't be in the classroom. I got 20 seconds. I'm just going to give up my time.
a lot of the political neutrality laws that have been trying to be passed in the last few years have specifically addressed gay pride flags and a theory that somehow teachers are grooming students to be gay. And all I can tell you is that that's not our teachers. Our teachers love their students. They're trying to help them to be successful, and they are in every way concerned for that student's welfare. And if anyone tries to groom a student, or we hear about it, those incidents are taken care of, and that teacher is out of the school. What I don't like is now we're moving towards every classroom has to be sterile, where a teacher can't put something up. I like the BYU basketball team or anything that's non-academic. I want teachers to be able to express themselves and create those connections with students that help them be successful.
And I fall somewhere in the middle. So I absolutely do think that teachers should be able to express themselves. Classrooms should be warm and inviting places, and we should be able to have some things there in the classroom. However, I also believe that we 100% should not be using our classrooms as forums for teaching children our political views and trying to help them to adopt our political views. My seventh grader had an excellent teacher for her social studies class, and he taught them the entire year, and they never knew what his political ideology was because he taught everything and presented everything in a factual manner. He taught them how to think and not what to think. And so I think that that is the direction that we should be going in our schools. And I'll yield the rest of my time to.
Okay, moving back to the budget, do you believe that administrative costs are too high? And if so, what are some measures you would take to decrease them? Mark.
Oh, no. So, if you take a look again at the expenditures by function, 70% instruction, district leadership is 0.6% of the budget. So if you cut all of the district leadership, you would get rid of 0.6% of the budget. School leadership, which is principals, assistant principals, I can tell you they earn their money. And they are 8% of the budget. Central services is 2.8% of the budget. Operation maintenance is 7.5% of the budget. Student transportation is 2.8% of the budget, just to give you a comparison of how these different functions compare to this 0.6% for district leadership.
So this is something that I've looked into as I've been researching the different district reconfiguration options. If you go, there's websites where you can see like transparently how much each of the different public school employees make. And I do think that our district is top heavy right now. I think that our administrators, they're some of the highest paid public employees in the state. In addition to that, we have layer upon layer upon layer upon layer of administration. We have our superintendent, Shane Farnsworth, who does an excellent job, but we also have, I think it's about 6 or 7 kind of sub-superintendents who are over each of the different areas. And then we have more and more layers below them. So if yes, I do think that we need to cut the cost in our administration, and I think one of the ways that we can do that is by looking at reconfiguration seriously, giving them a chance, using transparent data that is robust and thorough so that we can be able to have the information we need to make a decision. I think that we would be a lot more efficient if we were able to reconfigure based on everything that I've been able to study at this point.
So you probably know that it's a matter of public record how much public employees make. If you go to the Oak Transparent Utah website, you'll find that there are 81 people in Alpine School District who make over $200,000 in compensation. A big chunk of those work over at the school district. This is a chart. The superintendent of the school district in total compensation makes $350,000. So does the school business administrator. Our governor makes $165, and our attorney general, or 175. Our attorney general makes 166. So they're making way more. But another issue we have is the school board. They quadrupled their pay when when Mark Clement started out in 2017, he made $3,000 because this is 2 meetings a month, 2 evening meetings a month job. They quadrupled the pay to $12,000, and if you add in benefits for those 2 meetings a month that they went to last year, every evening meeting he's making $617 per meeting. That's pretty good pay. Some of the other school board members are making $1,753 per meeting with that. And I know they do some other things, but they shouldn't. Public officials shouldn't be able to quadruple their pay. Just there should be a law against that.
Did you want to respond, Mark?
Sure. So this is a great opportunity to educate our new candidates on what being a school board member is. I rarely spend less than 20 hours a week on my school board duties. During the session, I was up at the legislature almost every day. In addition to the school board meetings, we also have committee meetings. We also meet together to talk about lots of things. So the bottom line is, if you're not willing to spend 20 hours a week, this is the wrong job for you.
Okay, we're almost out of time, so 2 more. One, if the district were to stay, do you support moving to 9 school board members opposed to the current 7?
So if we were to stay together as one, I would definitely support moving to more school board representatives. However, instead of 9, I actually think we should look at 11. As we're building new high schools, I think that our best practice would be for us to have a school board member over each of the different clusters that we have in our area. And so that's what I would go for.
You shouldn't need that.
So
The question was, are going to 9 schools?
Yeah, if
Yeah.
it were.
So I don't support going to 9 school board members just because I think that a split probably is going to happen, and it doesn't make sense to have two more school board members now. So I saw Mark up at the legislature like he was talking about, and he wasn't representing Alpine School District, at least the day I saw him. He was representing the Utah School Boards Association, which is where he's the president-elect. He's on track to be president. He needs to win this election so he can be president next year. They're the child organization of the National School Boards Association. You remember, I don't know, a couple years ago when this organization accused parents of showing up to school board meetings as being domestic terrorists? That's the National School Boards Association. That's the organization that Mark, the local chapter he's going to be president of, that's that he goes to all their conferences for. So I understand that there's other stuff that's required of the school board, but I think we might be mixing jobs here because he's working more than one job when he's up at the legislature.
And extra 30 seconds to rebuttal.
Oh, boy. So this is a great opportunity to talk about the influence that Alpine School District has because we now have a representative on the Utah School Boards Association. So what that means is now when we vote on whether to support bills, we have an extra representative. Me as the president-elect, and we also have another member of the board that is on our joint legislative committee, which allows us to have more of an influence on making things happen in the state. I am excited to be able to work throughout the state, but I can tell you I was up at the legislature almost as much when I was a school board member and not on the Utah School Boards Association.
And that's 7 to 9 if we stay as one.
Oh, excuse me. I look at the state school board with 15 members, and I don't know how they get anything done. So I would like to stay with 7.
Okay, great. If you've been to a moderated debate by me before, this is how I end every one. So you each get to tell us something you like or admire about the next person. So Alicia, John, Mark, Alicia.
Okay. I actually had the chance to go to lunch with John this last week, and I had a wonderful time getting to know him. He is somebody who cares a lot about our schools. He's somebody who is really smart financially, and I appreciate that he could bring a financial viewpoint to our district.
So one thing I admire about Mark is, as far as I can tell from his financial disclosures, the 3 times he's been in office, that he never accepted donations. I think money in politics is a huge problem. I think you're automatically biased towards the person who gives you money. As far as I can tell, he self-funded his own campaigns, and I really admire that, because I think that means that he's not beholden to others. He can make his own independent decisions and try to represent his constituents as best he can. So I have the same philosophy. I won't accept a dime from anybody because I don't want to be beholden to people who donate money to me, and he set a good example in that regard.
So all I can say is I went to a recent parent meeting at Rocky Mountain, and Alicia had so much data and surveys that she had gathered from parents. And I was so excited to see that she was reaching out and trying to get data and look at that to help make decisions. So I really appreciate that.
Awesome. We will finish with a 60-minute or 60 minutes. 60-second. We've hit our 60 minutes. 60-second closing statement, and we'll go Mark, Alicia, John.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity. Those that have organized this, I kind of wish Tracy were here because she's a PTA president at Linden Elementary, and I think has some great things to offer too. I hope that you'll look at her webpage and think about her as well. I appreciate people who are willing to go into the public forum and be candidates. So I appreciate that among my opponents. I will say that 30 seconds. I came in to being a board member, being a staunch advocate against investigations math. I was a single issue board member. I hated it, everything about it. And after I got up to be a board member, I realized, the real thing you can do as a board member, you have no power by yourself. The only power you have is as you persuade a majority of the board member to actually make a decision. I think that's where I am. I'm able to persuade people. My involvement in the Utah School Boards Association shows that I'm able to get people to go along with my ideas. And that experience in persuading people to a point of view is probably the biggest thing that I have to offer.
So I think one of the most important qualities that a leader can have is listening. And as Mark mentioned, I listen to people. I seek out information. I seek out opinions. I include people in the process. I bring them to the table. I make sure that before decisions are made, that we have the information from people who are on the ground who are going to be impacted by those. I'm running because I care about our education. I think that we need to have a really strong public school district available to all of our students because that matters for our society. And I'm an optimist. Even though I do see problems that are here in our district, I also see a lot of the great things that they're doing, and I see the great potential that they have. I know that the education that we receive is one of the most impactful things in our lives. I'm sure many of you here could raise your hand and tell a story about a teacher who had an impact and an influence in your life. And it is so important that we support that and we do it the right way, that we are accountable, that we're transparent, that we communicate, that we collaborate, and that we include people in these decisions.
So what drove me to run for school board mainly was financial. I felt like the Alpine School District was kind of out of control with the raising of taxes. And like I mentioned, our current representative on the school board has voted 100% of the time every chance he got to raise our taxes. And I understand that he's saying now that he'd like to save up and pay for school buildings, but the best predictor of future human behavior is past human behavior. And with a 100% voting record, you're making a gamble if you buy that that's what's going to happen coming down the road. I will never vote to raise our taxes. I will use the $1 billion that's already allocated of our tax dollars to do a great job educating every single student in Alpine School District. I also think that it's important that our state and our country was never set up to have career politicians. Mr. Clement wants to go for he wants you to elect him so he can go for 14 years for a 4th term. Our hero, George Washington, walked away after 8. He could have stayed in forever. He was wildly popular, but he said, no, that's enough. And I really don't think that anybody, no matter how great they are, should go have 4 terms on the school board. So I would encourage you to consider that and vote for me in the primary of the general election. Thank you.
Awesome. Let's give one more round of applause for our candidate. It looks like they'll hang out here for a couple minutes at their table if you have any further questions, and have a great rest of the night. Thank you.
Takes a lot to come to this kind of event on a Monday night.
He's going to be